Welcome back. On today's episode, I have Chris Chavira. Chris is the branding and photography expert with CC Images. So, Chris, welcome.
Hey, thank you for having me in the studio today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to have you come in and chat a little bit about your story and a little bit about branding, photography, and the things that you do. So maybe we can start off with, what are you doing today?
So I just finished a photo shoot. Fifth Third Bank called me in to do some corporate headshots for them. They're at their uptown location. And that's something that's quite common that I do. I do that with also Truist. That's another big one. And a lot of lawyers.
Okay. And so right now you've moved to Charlotte area semi-recently, right?
Right. So I've been in this area now for about 3.5 years, and North Carolina has been really good to my family and I. We moved during the time of COVID when things were getting crazy. Gavin Newsom was shutting everything down. He said, you can't go to the beach. You can't get your hair cut. Your kid can't go to school. You can't go to work. And I'm like, wait a second, give me a break. My family deserves better than this. And we're paying how much in taxes? So I said, there's got to be other options. So we checked out Utah. We checked out Texas. We were going to check out Florida, but a friend said, hey, why don't you check out Mooresville in North Carolina? And I said, well, okay, what's special about it? Well, they said it's the home of NASCAR. And not too far outside of the city is this big, beautiful lake called Lake Norman. And I said, well, that sounds interesting. That'd be a lot better than the Southern California being inland, because you have to be like a millionaire to live at the beach in Southern California. So we came here and we had such a wonderful experience. People were so cool. The traffic wasn't too bad by my standards. I looked at the city and I said, this place is growing. There's a lot of potential here. And we decided to give it a try. And boy, has it been a blessing. We're super excited. Things are going really well. We're living on the lake now, got a beautiful view, got the jet ski.
Nice.
Life is good. But the main thing is that there's not a lot of people like me here in this area. So in Southern California, for every mile, there's another 100 photographers that do exactly what you do. My unique background comes from working in the entertainment business, and we'll get into that in greater detail a little bit later. But basically, to answer your question, my family and I moved here 3.5 years ago. We're happy and excited to be here, and it's been pretty amazing ever since.
Awesome. So maybe describe your life in California right before the move. What were you doing then? What was your life like in California? Did you live in the Hollywood area? Where did you live?
Yeah, so that's a long question. I'll give you a short flyover. So California in the 70s and 80s, I'm a child of the 70s, was very different than the late 90s moving forward. That's when things really started to change in a big way. So basically, folks were together, everything was going great. Disco music was in. I was doing the roller skating and all that fun stuff, and pool parties and a lot of smog in LA at that time. And then unfortunately, my folks went their separate ways, and I moved up with my mom to a beautiful place called Monterey, California. Mm-hmm. Now this is the area where John Steinbeck was from, and he wrote like, Mice and Men, and Cannery Row, to name a few. So this area is absolutely gorgeous. It's where Pebble Beach and Big Sur is, and you see Bixby Bridge and Pacific Grove, and of course Carmel. Carmel is like very, very special, beautiful area. But you have to be very wealthy to live in those anywhere near the coast. So we lived in further into Monterey, right adjacent to Seaside, and then my mom remarried. Met a beautiful man by the name of Lieutenant Colonel Butch Roper at Fort Ord before that place closed down. And so my first dad, he was the artist, right? And my second dad, he was like the military guy. So it was very different worlds.
Yeah.
And then, so I went to school there, and then I myself went into the military, happy to serve, go Army. And when I got out, I went to junior college, and I moved back down into Los Angeles, where I stayed back with my father, Eli Chavira, he spent his life as a musician. He was a music worship leader for the church.
Okay.
And he also sold insurance, this type of stuff. But he was like the total consummate artist. And he drilled in me going out and experiencing life. Both dads were good about that. They said, you can't take anything with you. You might as well live your life, meet as many people as you can, do as many different things, especially prior to getting married. Because once you get married, it's time to settle down, focus. And so enjoy each phase of life. That's really important. So then there was the military time, there was high school, there was Monterey, came back to Los Angeles, and then it was time to get to work. So got into music, got into TV and film, and I worked in front of the camera as well as behind the camera.
Okay.
So went through this whole phase of like swing dancing. I was into swing dancing for a long time, and I used to compete in that. That was a lot of fun. I did that. And then as my career started to progress, I started to assist professional photographers that were working on different sets like ER and Dancing with the Stars and The Bachelorette. And so little by little, I got to know those people who were in charge of those things, and I started building up my portfolio. And at that time, the big people who were somebody at that time was Herb Ritts. Mm-hmm. Now, he's since passed away, but he was the guy that I was like, wow. And this is the guy that did the early Gap commercial ads. So Herb Ritts was like, whoa. So I liked Herb Ritts. And then there's another big photographer out of New York that I absolutely love, Richard Avedon. And then, of course, Irving Penn. And then another photographer out of LA would be Matthew Ralston. So he did a lot of stuff for Rolling Stone. So these are the big people that I wanted to emulate. And then after Los Angeles, then I met my beautiful wife and moved down to Orange County. And she's from Japan. So I ended up going to Japan and meeting that beautiful culture. And came back down and, we had a child. And now we were in Orange County just prior to moving here to this beautiful area of living at Lake Norman and having a studio and a photo business here in Charlotte.
So that's quite a bit of a story in there. I'll want to kind of delve into it a little bit more.
Sorry about that. I know it's a lot of information to take in.
No, it's good. It's good. It gives me at least context where I can move around with questions. So maybe going way back, you mentioned that basically both of your dads encouraged you to kind of experience life and so on. Back in when you were younger, were you more introverted, extroverted? Like, what was your personality like, and what was your kind of relationship with other people like at that time, like in high school, let's say?
I think it's pretty obvious to your audience at this point that I was definitely an extrovert. I had no trouble meeting people and being out there. But the unfortunate thing is, even prior to my folks going their separate ways, my dad loved to move around, and he loved to move around because he loved to decorate. Mm-hmm. So if he could move to a different place just for the sake of decorating a new place, he did it. So the unfortunate side effect is I was always the new kid in school, mm-hmm. right? Hard to make friends, and it also doesn't help your learning, right? If you're always switching schools, switching teachers, and always being the new kid, it doesn't help. But I was always creative, and I was always outgoing, and I just, never had trouble getting myself out there. Here's the thing, is my parents early on said, if you don't ask, you don't get, right? And nobody owes you anything. So you got to make it happen for yourself, right? So if you're spending money on something, don't be satisfied if it's not what you want. Mm-hmm. And if you're going to buy something, make sure it's something you really love and you don't just end up with some junk, right? Don't be an inspirational, I'm going to buy this, and be like everybody else in debt, right?
Yeah.
So you work hard for your money, get something that you really want, and then really focus on experiences, not material goods, to make you happy. So for me personally, that comes from being raised in a household that, went to church and had basic Judeo-Christian values.
A few years later, many years later, when you met your wife, and you mentioned she's from Japan, you went over to Japan. What would you say Japanese culture is like? Like what's obviously it's a different culture, but like what are some unique things about it? What are some things that are less known in public, kind of a thing.
Yeah. So the Japanese are great. They are amazing. They are, well, right at the top of the list, they are the most respectful, helpful, and the number one in customer service. Now, I've traveled all over the world. I've been all over Europe. I haven't been to Southeast Asia or Saudi Arabia, but I've been all over Europe, all over America, and I have yet to find another culture, specifically as a society, that does better customer service. So the best way I can describe this is there's that scene in the first movie of Back to the Future where Marty McFly goes back in time, right?
Hmm.
And he sees like 50s Americana, and it shows like the car going into the gas station, and then you see all the servicemen in their uniforms and hats running out to the car, checking the oil, checking the air, cleaning the windshield wipers. We don't have that customer service anymore. They still do that in
Wow.
Japan to this day. They still dress up in uniforms. They don't expect a tip. Their customer service is so high. I'll give you another example. If you go into a convenience store, whether it's 7-Eleven or whatever, Special K or whatever you call it, a Circle K, excuse me, not Special K. And you go in there and let's say it's 5 o'clock or it's 8 o'clock at night, and you say to the guy, "Hey, can I get directions?" They're going to say, "Oh, I don't live around here." Right? They may not even make eye contact. They'll be on their cell phone like, okay, get out, right? Or if you say, "Well, hey, how's your day going?" Usually they're going to say, "Oh, I can't wait to get off. I'm okay." Real downtrodden, right?
Yeah.
In Japan, when they give you your change, they put their change on a plate and they give you your plate like this and they go, "Thank you for coming in to our establishment. Thank you for coming in. This is a convenience store. This is not some 4-star restaurant or hotel," right? So it's amazing how much they appreciate, how respectful they are. And so I just think they're a wonderful society. Their art and design is amazing. Very clean country. I've been to Tokyo several times, and the best way I can describe that is picture Las Vegas and New York got married and had a kid. That would be Tokyo. Tokyo is pretty off the hook. It's amazing. There's so many people, and it's amazing that density of population is so smooth. There's not a lot of crime. Yes, they have the Yakuza, but that's kind of like this small subset, and it's off in the distance. You can feel very safe walking around in Tokyo, Japan at any hour in pretty much any place, unless you go out of your way to go to some seedy area, right? So great people, great, beautiful country, especially in the spring when the cherry blossoms are out. Oh my gosh, the country is gorgeous.
What would you say is what is in their culture that helps them to be like that, to be hospitable, to be grateful? Like what's ingrained in their culture that produces those kind of people?
Okay, in my humble opinion, and this may not be the contemporary political thing to say, but they're a very homogenous group of people. So for years, they didn't have a lot of foreigners in their country. So if you and I were in Japan right now and we're at a train station, pretty much as far as the eye can see, everybody's about the same height and everybody has dark hair and everybody's kind of dressed the same. Yes, you have the Harajuku area where people get all dressed up in anime, but I'm talking about the general areas, right? Not some specific anime area, right?
Hmm.
So all this to say is the society itself instills at a very young age into the children, like everybody takes turns and cleans the chalkboard. Okay, now you're in charge of some of the other kids and you're in charge of cleaning the classroom. And we're all going to get out together and we're going to all do calisthenics together. These were some of the things that we used to do in America. Like go out and say the Pledge of Allegiance and, behave a certain way and act a certain way and do a certain thing. So when you set that up early on, you're setting up a society, not just children, for success into how to act a certain way. Now, some people may say, "Oh, well, that's contrary to being me. I got to be me." That's a very American sort of way of looking at it, like, gotta dance, right? But there's a time and a place, such as a New York subway, to behave yourself and to be nice and to give your seat to some old person that can't sit down. You don't have to always have this hardcore attitude, and it's me, and forget you, and I'm gonna cut in because I gotta, that's what I like about North Carolina compared to California. North Carolina, and some may disagree with me, people are a little more respectful, or a little bit nicer. They hold the door open for you. They say thank you. They say please. In an elevator, somebody says, how's your day? It was so funny. It wasn't until I moved here and I walked down the street that all of a sudden people in cars driving by would wave to me. I'm like,
Well,
what am I doing? Why are we waving? We don't know each other. But it's those little pleasantries that help. And so Japan, to answer your question, from an early start, teaches their kids that way. The kids grow up and everybody says, okay, you're going to work. You're going to work. We're going to work these crazy hours. Now, there are some things that are not so great. So for instance, I know a lot of young guys that suffer heart attacks because they overwork. They literally go blind. They have strokes. These are young men. These aren't like senior citizens because they work so hard and there's so much pressure in Japan to perform if you're a corporate man. The very few people get to be like the artist and the creative people, right, in Japan. And so they give an exception. And I'll tell you, as a foreigner, when we go, they don't put the same societal norms on you when you're traveling there. So you get treated differently than you would if you were going back as a Japanese citizen, because they expect you to act like everybody else.
Yeah.
That answer your question?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So you mentioned again your wife is Japanese, and if you can elaborate on as far as like how did you meet her? How did that story evolve?
Okay, that's a good fun question. So if we back up, let's see, I'm about around 27 and I'm single and I'm just having the time of my life. And this is during the around 97. And swing dancing is just past its peak. So the movie Swingers with Vince Vaughn has already come out. Every commercial, every movie, every TV show had a swing dance scene in it. Some big band, and they're playing all that great old 40s big band music. And I was, aside from doing my career as a photographer, I was performing as a professional swing dancer on commercials, on TV shows, in movies. The very last thing I did, and you can see barely if you're looking for me, is in the opening scene of the first G.I. Joe movie, you can see me dancing. But the one that you can see me the most in is there was a 2-part episode of the Gilmore Girls, which that show was around about like 6 years ago or something like that. And the whole town gets together and they start swing dancing, and you can see me in that. So to answer your question, we got off track here. So to answer your question, at this time, I'm going all the time to a place called the Brown Derby. And this is where the house band was Big Bad Voodoo Daddy at the time. Now, they were a big band at the time. They even got to play at the Super Bowl. So they were this punk rock band from Ventura, California that turned into swing dance. And they had the zoot suit, they had the hats and 2-tone saddle Oxfords, and they were playing all this great music. And so I'd go there every Wednesday. It was off the hook. The line was out the door, and it was right below the Griffith Park Observatory. So where Hollywood ends and Glendale begins, the observatory's right here. Just below is the Brown Derby, and I used to go there swing dancing. That is where I met my wife. My wife saw me dancing, and my friend that I knew from church it was his coworker. And he said, hey, can you teach me how to dance? And I said, sure. Well, my poor friend, he was a total white boy. He had two left feet. He couldn't dance to save his life, right? Sorry, Tom, if you're out there watching this, sorry about that. But Tom says, hey, come to my place in Venice Beach and we're going to do a lesson. I said, great. So I brought my music, brought my ghetto blaster, when we had the ghetto blasters, right? And I said, hey, Tom, I can't find your place. He's like, it's okay. I'm going to send Miyoko out to come get you and to find my place, right? And then I saw her and I was eating a burrito. I remember I was eating a burrito, total Californian, eating a avocado chicken burrito. And I was stuffing my face and I saw this beautiful Asian Japanese woman. And I was like, wow. And so the entire lesson, I said, Tom, no, that's not how you do it. Let me show you how you do it. And then I get in there with her and I'm like, this is how you do it, right? So then later after the lesson, I asked Tom, I said, hey, Tom, do you mind if I ask Miyoko out to go dancing? And, you know, he's like, yeah, I don't date my coworkers. I said, thanks, Tom. And that's how we met. And we've been together ever since. And so that's how I married my wife. And yeah,
Awesome.
life is good. I was scared to death the first time I did that. You know, I grew up during when roller disco was in, roller boogie was big. And there used to be skating rinks all over Los Angeles. They've all disappeared since then. And I remember this is when Rod Stewart had that song, If You Want My Body and You Think I'm Sexy. You remember that song?
I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah, anyhow.
I'm a foreigner too, so I came
Yeah.
like way after. So.
It was a big hit. It was a big hit. And so it was, they would clear the roller skating rink, right? Everybody had to get off and they're like, couples only to the floor. So then I'd get out and I'd ask like 5 girls and one would say yes. And I'd grab her hand. We'd go out there and skate. Now I was scared to death, but I was still having fun.
Yeah.
It's like nothing ever happened, but I did it.
So you met your wife after the military, right?
Yes. Long after the marriage.
Okay.
Yeah. That was way.
And at that time you were doing some was it commercials or whatever other kind of videos that you were in?
Yeah. So it was a mixed bag. I've lived on my own since I was 18. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had my own place and I lived for a while in Santa Monica and also in Glendale, California, where my dad was, right? And then later in Burbank. And that's where Warner Brothers is. And so aside from getting random jobs as like a production assistant on a film, I was also assisting professional photographers on car shoots, fashion shoots, unit still photography. So I got to see what all of this world was about. My first job was on a movie set with Pamela Anderson. This was, I think, her first movie called Barbed Wire. Mm-hmm. And it also had the actor that plays Boba Fett. I forgot his name. Not the Mandalorian guy, the other guy. And so that was really cool. I got to see what that world was all about. And they filmed it at the same place where Stanley Kubrick did, what's that horror movie that he had?
I'm not sure. Sorry.
The Shining.
Okay.
So The Shining with Jack Nicholson. And this is the famous hotel scene where they showed the elevator doors with the twins and the blood comes out. That's where this was filmed. And it was called the Ambassador Hotel. Little side note, this same hotel was the hotel where Kennedy and Marilyn Monroe got their groove on. Mm. It's also the same hotel that Kennedy's brother that won the primary in California after his brother had been shot. Mm-hmm. He got shot in this hotel in the chef dining pantry area. Yeah. So this hotel has a lot of history. Yeah. A lot of history at this hotel. And then much, much later, before its demise, before they closed it down and only did filming there, Sammy Davis Jr. had a club there. So that's going way back.
Yeah. What would you say as far as Hollywood backstage or things that regular person doesn't know much about Hollywood? I mean, you were kind of in it. Like, what do you know about Hollywood that an average person doesn't know?
Well, it's definitely all make-believe. It's not glamorous, right? If you work on set, it's very long, hard hours. Most of the time, you have to be in a union. And even if you are in a union, it's really people are just going to want to work with who they want to work with. It's not because they have to hire you. So it's always, you're perpetually always looking for a job, right? So whether you're in front of the camera or behind the camera, I would say the lion's share goes to the producer and the A-list actor, right? Other than that, it's a grind. It's really hard. Most of the people that I've met, whether it was in front or behind the scene, they're all a bunch of divas. Most of them are jerks. Most of them. They're total control freaks. right? And they love to power trip. So it doesn't make for a real fun work environment, right? So, for instance, James Cameron is notoriously known for yelling at people on set, right? And you saw, and I'm sure you've heard the scene, the audio of Christian Bale losing it because somebody was looking at him in his eye line, and he's yelling at the cameraman. I mean, there's lots of stuff like that where you're just berated in front of other people, and everybody assumes that this is okay to act like this.
So not the best of place to work or be around as far as Hollywood.
Yeah, but there are some nice moments.
Okay.
Right. So when I was a kid, when I was growing up, there was a show called The $6 Million Man. This was a big deal, starring Lee Majors. He later did a TV show in the 80s called The Fall Guy, which they just made a movie of. And man, I was such a big fan of this guy. He even had a doll, and I had the doll, and I used to play with the doll, right, growing up. Well, I got to meet him, and man, what a great experience that was for me to meet, my childhood hero, right?
Yeah.
And he was totally cool. He was totally funny. And so every once in a while, that happens. You get some nice people. And I want to give a shout out to David Hasselhoff. When I met him, he was super cool, super nice, and very polite and respectful. Now I know he that can come a little bit of a shock because he got in trouble for so he had some bad stuff become public with his daughter. But nobody's perfect. We all have our imperfections. I'm just saying that my personal experience was good with the Hoff and Lee Majors. Those were my favorite. I won't mention all the people I didn't like, right, that I met.
Yeah. So it seems like Hollywood of 80s, 90s, maybe even 2000, and Hollywood today, or let's say movie TV show industry of today is quite different. Like today you have Netflix, you have all these other whatever it is plus Disney Plus and Prime Plus and so on. And movies and shows are being made all over US now. It's not just Hollywood, right? So what do you see for Hollywood? Is it the end of Hollywood now?
No, I don't think it's ever going to be the end of Hollywood. I mean, Hollywood's always going to be there in our minds, and the symbol of the iconic, Hollywood land, which is Hollywood sign on the mountain of Hollywood, right? It's a magical place where dreams come true, where people think that like I can make it, right? They don't see the seedy underbelly of the reality of things and how hard and incredibly difficult and how you have to have connections and nepotism and be part of certain groups. But in general, yes, there has been lots of changes in the industry because now you can make a show like The Walking Dead in Georgia for a lot cheaper than you could ever in Hollywood, right? Atlanta is just one of the many places. There's production happening here in Charlotte, in North Carolina, that's picking up. There's all sorts of other places in the Midwest and beyond that are offering incentives for producers to come out, and we'll give you all these tax breaks and all these, discounts. The reason why Hollywood will always be there is because the industry is there. Panavision is based out of Hollywood. Like all the big things that support Hollywood are based in Hollywood, right? So if you want to get something major done, you're going to have to get it, order it, get it from Hollywood. Now, fortunately for me, a guy like me with my experience coming from Hollywood in the industry, I can do rather well in Charlotte because a lot of people here don't have those experiences, which helps me direct, which helps me, get my clients and give something that's more valuable to people here locally than, the average guy who's just brought up and maybe worked at the newspaper. No disrespect to anybody here in town, but you get the idea. So experience, it comes down to experience.
You have a different perspective,
yes,
or what your experience coming from the Hollywood kind of scene and so on is different than somebody growing up here doing something definitely different there. So you lived for most of your life in California. And as a Christian, what was life like for a Christian in California?
Well, I was brought up just after the Jesus movement. So I saw as a kid, as an early kid, like when I was 4 and 5, I still witnessed and saw the Jesus movement. Matter of fact, there was a movie that came out about Greg Laurie called the Jesus movement. It's probably about 3 years old. And they nailed it. I mean, they were spot on. The music, the way people dressed, the way people talked,
Yeah.
the way the church looked, the vibe. I mean, it was exactly the way it was. So, you have these leftover hippies, people in church with, dirty feet and sandals and bell bottoms, and not that there's anything wrong with that, but I mean, it was just very different than, say, a Southern Baptist who's dressing up in a 3-piece suit going to church, right? It's a very different vibe, right? And so as a child, seeing that was cool. But I'll tell you, another thing was the music was amazing. So the gospel music that was going on at that time, it was really great stuff. Very different than your Bible hymn stuff, right? So it had much more up-tempo, a lot of great guitar solos and just all sorts of different rhythms and stuff that you just don't even hear anymore. Matter of fact, I wouldn't mind hearing some of that older Jesus movement music nowadays, because I don't hear any of it now. I mean, I know times change and styles and tastes change, but what I'm saying is that other than like King and Country is great. What a great Christian group that is, and they're what a great story they have in their testimony. But man, there's not a lot of unique bands out there doing great gospel music that I hear, right?
Yeah. But what about as far as the society around? I mean, you moved out of there recently. Has it gradually became worse and worse and worse, especially being kind of antagonistic towards Christians?
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm sorry. I got a little off topic. I went more of the music route to answer your question. I'm sorry. So let's back up. So yes, times have changed. People have changed. Society has changed. America has definitely changed. California is not the same California that I grew up in. Way more prolific homelessness all over places. And being a Christian in general, I think you'll hear people say, I'm spiritual, but you're not going to hear people say, I'm a Christian, right? It's almost like, well, let's be dismissive. Now, that may sound foreign to somebody here in North Carolina, but believe me, when you're in Southern California, the mind police are out. If you start talking about conservative values, you talk about your Christianity, boy, man, somebody's going to jump down your throat. They're going to be all over you and start saying why, and they're going to challenge you. And it's like, I'm trying to have a private conversation with my friend, right? Yeah. I'm not here to debate you on the sidewalk or at the Denny's, right?
Yeah.
So to answer your question, I think the days of the Andy Griffith Show and Happy Days, that feeling of, hey, we can all just get along. Like, you believe what you believe in, I'll believe what I believe. We're in a society now that is so like, we're divided by race, we're divided by religion, we're divided by ethnicity. Can't we just all be Americans?
Right.
Can't we? I don't have a problem with somebody being of a different faith or having different priorities in life. There's nothing wrong. I mean, I'm not here to persecute anybody, right? I just want to do here's what I believe. Here's what I'm doing. And, you want to do your thing. That's cool. That's what makes America great. Yeah. We all are diverse. That's what makes life fun and interesting. That's why I love foreigners, right? That's why I like to visit and taste different food and be around different people, because it's different, right? It's not the same.
Yeah. Speaking of foreigners and other countries, you mentioned you traveled quite a bit around the world. Maybe excluding Japan, because you probably have some bias towards Japan. What is another place other than U.S. and Japan that you liked really well, like that kind of you liked the most?
Well, I had a lot of fun in Lugano, Switzerland.
Okay.
And I was in the Italian-speaking part, which is not more than like a half an hour to 40 minutes by train from Milan
Hmm.
over the border, the Swiss border. It's a small little town. And Switzerland's broken up into three areas. You're either French speaking area, German speaking area, or Italian speaking area. And even though the Swiss are a little bit on the uptight side,
Hmm.
they know how to get things done, right? That's why their watches are so precise, right? Because their people are very detailed, right? Their trains run on time, things are clean, places are safe because they're on top of stuff, right?
Yeah.
That's why. So yeah, I thought living in the Swiss Alps was absolutely gorgeous. That's a beautiful area. Um, what are some of the other areas that I thought was amazing?
Have you been to Lucerne in Switzerland?
Yes, I have been to Lucerne. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good place. You've been there too?
I, I've been I've been to Lucerne, the town itself, but I haven't been to the mountains of it. Like I didn't ski or anything like that. I was just in the city for like a day. There was a company I used to work with or for. I had a business trip to Bern, the capital, and then the guy that I came there with or I met there, he lived in Lucerne, so we kind of traveled there as well.
Yeah.
It's definitely a nice country. What do you think of their kind of isolationist stance and how they were like neutral during world wars and kind of their like um, they're basically sorry, my phone is kind of so they're more neutral, right? Switzerland is the neutral has a neutral policy, but at the same time, every citizen has their own gun and they're trained how to use it. So if something does happen, they have basically the whole army is every civilian.
Hmm.
So like, what's your view or thought on that kind of I don't know, society, I guess.
Well, it's interesting because whether it's the Japanese or whether it's the Swiss, I think there's a lot to be said for protecting your people and your culture. And the areas that don't have a lot of crime, like Switzerland and like Texas, what do they have in common? A
Guns.
lot of guns,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So if you're a criminal, you're going to think twice about breaking into a house in Switzerland when the family has a semi-automatic weapon, right?
Yeah.
You're going to think twice about crossing somebody's land in Texas because, good chance they have a gun in the car or at their house, right? So, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of, the whole gun debate, but the point that I'm saying is that I think the Swiss have done it pretty, there's some stuff that's not so great about World War II and about the banking and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But in general, for themselves, as any country should, you should protect your own people, right? And I know to this day, they still have all their bridges and tunnels lined with explosion. They can blow those things up anytime they feel like it.
Wow.
That's why the Nazis, if I'm getting this correct or not, forgive me and correct me, but as I recall, the Nazis never went in there because the Swiss said, "Hey, yeah, you can come in here, but we're gonna blow up the bridges, we're gonna blow up the tunnels, and you're gonna have a real hard time getting in and out of this area," right? Plus, they allowed them to keep all their Nazi gold, right? Which is not such a great thing, but anyhow,
Yeah.
you get the idea. So I think there's good and bad, as in any topic that we talk about today, and we've there's a lot of hot button issues about a lot of different stuff we talked about. But I think if you live in a country, don't you want your government to protect you and look out for you? And if you have a beautiful society, such as the Swiss, such as the Japanese, such as America, don't you want to, keep some of that identity,
Right. Yeah, and the other
Right.
thing I heard was that they don't let people in so easily. Like even Americans or whoever, like
Mhm.
even people with some kind of, whether it's education or wealth or whatever, they don't let people become citizens so easily over there in Switzerland.
Yeah, even if you marry a Swiss person, you got to
Yeah.
go through a lot of work. It's not
Yeah.
easy. Yeah, I've known a couple of expats that married Swiss, and they had to go through a lot.
Yeah. So I mean, it points to something like if you value your country or like you want to protect what you have. unless you don't care for it.
Tell me a little bit about your background really quick. Can you give me a quick overview?
Yeah. So I'm originally from Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
I was born in Ukraine in 1979, basically. But my parents moved to US in 89. So I was 10 years old when we moved and lived in Rochester, New York for 30 something years and moved to Charlotte in 2019. That's kind of like the quick background there as far as where I came from, where I've been. Yeah.
If I may,
Yeah.
I would love to hear your viewpoint on what's been going on over there.
Yeah. So when it comes to Ukraine, okay, I'm going to be biased towards Ukraine because I'm Ukrainian. I don't know what the mentality is of Putin or Russia. Like, it seems like obviously they want Ukraine back in the Soviet sphere.
Mm-hmm.
It's not Soviet anymore, it's Russia, but still it seems like they want to, for whatever it is. Ukraine has good resources as far as like the ground, the earth, the the ability to produce wheat, bread, and so on. They have some industrial capacity that's been kind of taken over with this war. So there's some resources that Ukraine definitely has that Russia wanted. They had Crimea, which is right on the Black Sea, like the perfect place for the navy, the ports, which they took over. So Russia definitely wanted a lot of these resources, and I believe that's why they're taking over or trying to take over Ukraine because of that. But Ukrainian people have tasted the freedom. Ukraine became its own country in 1991. So because the people tasted that freedom, they don't want to be under what used to be like communism. Like, I grew up under communism, and under that, it's, you got to watch what you say. There's no freedom of speech. You got to like if you were a Christian, you have to be kind of like a closet Christian. You can't be just like openly Christian because you would be persecuted. Basically, my grandfather was persecuted, sent to like a gulag. My dad had to like move his family around, his like sisters and mom, while my grandfather was, they took him away or whatever.
Wow.
So the younger people who tasted that freedom, they, once you know what freedom is, you would rather die than be like, okay, yeah, take it over. So that I believe that's why Ukraine is still fighting to be Ukraine. It doesn't want to be under Russia from that perspective. So and I don't know, like the corruption, I'm sure, like I'm not there, I don't know much about it, but I know coming out of USSR, there was a lot of corruption under communism. And that kind of went into Ukraine, and even though Ukraine became free, there was still corruption and all of that. So I'm sure there's corruption, in Ukraine. There's definitely corruption in Russia, but that alone, to me, it doesn't mean that okay, we shouldn't be helping Ukraine because there's corruption or whatever. We should figure out a way to eliminate corruption, but still help Ukraine to be independent.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of a
Thanks for sharing.
My view on the whole thing. Yeah. What would what do you think about that? Like, of
Yeah,
Ukraine
no, I
and
mean,
Russia, what's going on there?
I like I said, war is bad.
Yeah.
Human life is valuable. I don't like anybody power tripping on somebody else, whether it's a person or a country. I don't like that at all. It gets under my skin, right? And I would love to see the Ukrainian people stay independent. I'm amazed that it's lasted this long. I mean, I thought once Putin came in, I thought 3 weeks later that would be it, right? So it's amazing. Yeah, I think, whoever makes the gold makes the rules, right?
Yeah.
And history is only taught by the people that won,
Right.
right? So there's two sides to every story. None of us are perfect, Only Jesus and Peter walked on water.
And Peter almost sank.
Yeah, but he did it. He was the only person that made it, other than Jesus. He was able to walk on water for a little bit, right?
Yeah.
The point being is that we all fall short,
Right.
and it's loving your enemies is difficult, but it's being a human and living our life and spreading the good news. I think that's our great calling. And just, just being a good person, just raising your family, taking care of your family, and just not bothering other people and hassling others, and just trying to get just do a little something good while you're here with the life that you have, right?
Right.
Our
Exactly.
our time span here on this planet is very, very short. This is not a dress rehearsal. And, just whether it's you and I being here, having some good conversation, or in our daily routine, talking to the cashier as we're going out, just put a little joy in somebody's life.
Right.
It doesn't take much.
Definitely. Yeah. So tell the audience, tell me a little bit more about your business, kind of what else you're doing today, what services you offer, that kind of thing.
I thought he'd never ask. Yes. Okay. So my name is Chris Chavira, and my company is CC Images. So it's ccimages.com is the website. You can get a hold of us, and if you're looking for event photography, headshots, portraits, but the specialty is branding, branding photography. So what is branding photography? So recently, I had a client and they said, we need some more new pictures for our website. We need to show diversity and we need to show different ages. And I said, okay, great. I can help you with that. So I organized the photo shoot. I storyboarded it. I directed it. Right. And I said, okay, we're going to use your employees. I picked out the employees. I picked out different ethnicities, different ages. And we just set up shot by shot. We said, we're going to need at least 4 to 5 hours, and we're going to do it at one of your branches, one of your locations. And man, it came out great. Right. I did this for another company in LA, and they used it for a billboard campaign. So that was really cool. And they used it to get employees to, people that want to sign up and have a career with them. They did it for outreach to tell people about their business and their identity. And they also did it for their social media. So I provide content, right? So it's the group shots, it's lifestyle. So when people think branding, they think lifestyle. So if I was to do a photo shoot of you, I would show you here in this studio environment, here with, doing what you're doing and promoting your business, getting your vision out, selling your product, selling your service to people. That's what I specialize in. That's what I do. That's the type of photography I provide for people.
And what do you focus on any particular industry or business sector, or kind of wide open to any?
Right. So basically, what we're focusing on right now is in this area is banking and lawyers, corporate photography, right? But I'm always open to doing other type of stuff. So for instance, I just did a photo shoot for Bosch and Timken, and that is factory product stuff, but they also needed headshots. And then they called me back for Family Day. So that's event photography, right?
So do you do anything other than photography? Do you do videography as well, or just strictly photography?
So I would never call myself per se a videographer, but yes, I do shoot video. And what that is social media content for people. So, if you're trying to sell something in your store or you're trying to show lifestyle stuff, I do know how to direct. I do know how to shoot video, but it's not, high-end professional video cameras, but I do know how to light. I do know how to direct. And that's the key thing, is the creativity that goes behind it.
And then as far as like area, your service area, is it just Charlotte, just north of Charlotte? Like where do you provide your services to?
So we service all the Carolinas and also Virginia and Tennessee. I still have clients on the West Coast in Los Angeles. So I fly out there at least 2 to 3 times a year to go do photo shoots. And now we're expanding out into Florida, and I'm hoping to secure something soon in New York. So we'll go anywhere and everywhere, right? It's not an issue for me. I don't mind getting on a plane traveling, and you can always hire the extra people that you need to get things done.
Awesome. Anything else you'd want to share?
Well, I'm just really happy to be here in North Carolina with you, and the people in this town and this state have been very gracious to my family and I. It's been a wonderful experience. Everything's been great. I can't complain. It's offered me many opportunities to even expand into real estate. So now, I'm an investor. Now I'm a real estate guy, and that's fun. I really enjoy that. But just the lifestyle that this state has afforded my family and I, we're really grateful and thankful for. And I'm so glad the election is done. I'm so glad I don't have to look at any more election ads. I'm just glad I can get on with my life. And for those of you at home, we finally got the results just last night. So, we didn't get much sleep last night. But
Did the person you voted for win?
I'm not going to say anything. I don't want anybody to get upset. But I'm just looking forward to the next 4 years to, making some really good things happen professionally and personally. And thank you so much for having me be here. It's been an honor.
No, it's been great just learning more about your life and what you do. Stories about like Japan and so on. I mean, very insightful. So
and thanks for sharing about Ukraine.
Yeah, definitely. So until next time, thank you, Chris.
Thank you. See you later.